Hello everyone, welcome back. So let's talk about today. Recently, I got a question that what is the easiest way to understand the difference between the Agile and the Waterfall? And today I'm going to explain you a very simple way to remember how the Agile works as compared to how the Waterfall works. Definitely, there are a lot of terminology differences you will find which you don't have it in Waterfall, whereas you have it in Agile when we talk about like a sprint backlog if you're using the Scrum methodology. Now, talking about the waterfall, mostly we see if you try to relate the pictorial representation, we have kind of a water flow structure like it's coming from the requirement, technical requirement design, then the development, testing, and then the closing. Now, this is just a sequential process. Whereas, if you need to accommodate any changes, if you need to make any changes at any point of time, you have to go through the proper change control process and go back to the original document where the changes are, such as let's say the changes are in your requirement document. So you have to take those approved changes and go back to the requirement, and then from there onwards, all the documents which are the downstream documents, which you can say that design document, coding, then the test plan, test cases, all the impacted document needs to be updated to accommodate those changes. Whereas when we talk about, let's say, Agile, the flow of the requirement analysis, design, development, and the testing is not going to change. That remains the same. The only part you're going to find it little bit different, which is your change control process. So you do not have to go through the entire change control process for every time you make an iteration. So you have the flexibility. So that is the reason Agile is considered a flexible model, because you have the flexibility to go back from requirement and make the updates. If let's say you like the user like the prototype, and or let's say the user is in the reviewing the design and they have some changes, they have some recommendation, that can be accommodated in the requirement very easily, because it's not a very robust process where you have a very hard line to say now you cannot go back and modify the previous phase which was your requirement phase. So that is the only difference you have between the waterfall and the agile. So because of this flexibility, the agile is getting more and more popular, because definitely when you have a flexible model, it have a direct impact on the quality product as well as the cost and the timeline. And any project is all about quality, time, schedule, and the cost. Now, the way again how I explained you is the sequence of all the task, requirement, design, implementation, and the testing and the closure is not going to change. The only flexibility you have in the agile is that going back to the previous phase, that flexibility is allowed in the agile methodology, and that is the reason Agile is more flexible and more used and rapidly moving fast in the industry. And the industry is adapting this at a very fast pace. So if you need to remember that, just always remember that in Agile you can go back to the previous phases at any point of time without any proper change control process. Whereas in Waterfall, you always have to go through the formal change control process anytime you have to accommodate or add some changes. On top of that, you cannot move to the phase which is like requirement to the design phase until and unless you have phase deliverables completed and baseline for that phase. So if you're in the requirement phase, your baselining has to be done for the requirements, then only you can move to the next phase. So that is exactly what the challenges are in waterfall as compared to the flexibility which you get in agile. And that is all what you need to recall and understand when we talk about agile versus waterfall in the project.